This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Brigman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Brigman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at FULFILLRITE.com. What up? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this show, we talk with entrepreneurs and creative types who have successfully raised money on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other crowdfunding websites. We get into what's working right now, what they did to actually raise money, all of that kind of stuff, the marketing strategies they used. And today, we have the privilege of talking with an entrepreneur and also board game, card game creator who has raised $500,000 on Kickstarter with 2 successful Kickstarter campaigns. This is Travis Hancock, the founder of Facade Games. So his first campaign raised a little bit over $100,000 for a card game that sort of is based around the time of the Salem witch trials. So you can check it out on Kickstarter. This was in 2015, I believe. And then he went on to launch a second successful Kickstarter campaign called Tortuga, a pirate game of mutiny, plunder, and deceit. And this campaign raised over $400,000 from over 11,000 backers. Both of these campaigns just really took off right out of the gate, and Travis shared a lot of great tips on this interview in terms of what worked for him in not only having this first success, but also the second, things he would have done differently, and also his approach to reward fulfillment, getting all of those rewards out to his crowdfunding campaign backers. So I think you're going to like this interview. A lot of actionable material and strategies that you can use for your own Kickstarter campaign. One of the things you will also notice with this interview is just the incredible power that the Kickstarter marketplace has. And it is a marketplace. There are people on here that are regularly checking out campaigns. There are buyers and sellers, people creating campaigns, people backing them, etc. So it is a marketplace. I talk a lot about the Kickstarter marketplace and also some of the marketing strategies that you can use to stand out in my online free course, which you can check out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. And this course goes through a few different introductory training videos that show you how you can absolutely smash your goal on Kickstarter and surpass it. We all set a goal on Kickstarter, but I think most of us want to actually blow past this goal and actually raise more than we anticipated. And this course goes through some of the key elements that will show you how to do that. So if you want to check it out, it's at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. Just enter your email address and you will start getting emails from me with some of these introductory training videos. If you're more of a reader in the audience and you want to check out my latest book, you can go and check out the Kickstarter launch formula on Amazon. It took a while for me to write that book. A lot of great information there. And that is at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter formula. So those are 2 really great places to get started if you do or if you are planning a successful campaign and you want to make the most out of your pre-launch time. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Travis, welcome to the podcast. Where are you located in the United States or the world?
I'm currently in Provo, Utah, where we're at.
Cool. What's it like there now, weather-wise?
It's been pretty hot this couple weeks. It's hit 100 a couple times.
Jeez.
So hoping
Damn.
that comes down, but
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and we also just hit our like really heat like time of the year.
yeah.
Also been getting like a lot of rain and stuff like that, but it's been a great summer. It's just been going really by fast for me at least.
Yeah, it's been a good one.
So how does someone from Utah come up with an idea for this entirely new card game based on the Salem witch trials? Like I grew up with this stuff, I'm from like a small town, maybe 40 minutes north of Boston. I know about all of the history, the crazy time of like the Salem witch trials. I'd love to know though, like how did that rope you in? How did you get interested in that time period?
Yeah, so actually for that game, the theme kind of came second. So I've always loved playing games called Mafia Werewolves. I don't know if you've heard of those. It's like a secret. Everyone has a secret role, and you're trying to hunt down the mafia members or the werewolves. Anyways, so Salem kind of stemmed from that. Kind of built on some of those core mechanics. So there's a lot of distrust and uncertainty about who people are, and a lot of accusations flying around. So once we built the game, then we were looking for a theme to kind of put on top of it, and I learned about the Salem witch trials in high school, and just kind of knowing a little bit about that, it seemed like the perfect way to match up the game. So then did a little more research into it, and kind of put the skin on the game that was the Salem witch trials, and that's kind of how we did it.
Was this the first like board game or card game that you made, or have you made others in the past that just haven't gone on Kickstarter?
Yeah, so several summers ago, I made a game called Harry Potter Mafia, but I knew that wasn't going to get published just because all the copyright stuff. I don't really want to mess with that. So that kind of morphed into what Salem became. So we launched Salem back in 2015, and then actually in January of this year, we launched our second game based on pirates. That's called Tortuga 1667. So that's our second game in hour. Yeah, thanks.
So this first one raised about $100,000 over the course of 30 days or so. Second one looks like it raised $400,000. So you've raised about $500,000 on Kickstarter thus far. That's incredible, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's surprised us too.
It's also like it's so cool to me that you can bring something to life this way. You're thinking of this game idea, you can get all the things together, you can get the funding, and you can actually get it out there in the hands of people. Yeah,
Kickstarter's been a game changer for us.
No pun intended, right?
Oh, yeah. Nope.
Well, so what actually, I'm just really curious, before we get into some of the tips, the strategies, you wrote a really awesome blog post talking about some of the marketing strategies, things we should know before we go into a campaign. I also just wanted to learn a bit about you, sort of in terms of the board game, this like craze that you have, or this, I guess, desire that you have to create these card games. Where did that come from? You don't just like wake up someday and be like, I want to create a card game, and then you make it. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so I played a lot growing up, and I come from a big family of lots of boys. We're all really competitive, so we really get into our games. And I don't know, I think my personality is one that's just kind of like non-accepting of the status quo. And so I'd often find myself playing a game and then being like, you know what, I would change this rule about it, or I'd play it differently. So I would change the rules of existing games all the time. And eventually that just kind of, I don't know, I took it a few steps further, and it became my own thing, and figured out that I love doing it. It's just such a fun thing. I feel like it really works your creativity, but then also your like the logic side of your brain, and there's lots of psychology involved, which I really enjoy, of figuring out how people think and how they'll interact with each other in the game and what kind of emotions you want to pull out of people. So I guess it just kind of was the perfect storm for the things I like. Another thing I really like is history, and so far both of our games have put on the theme of historical events. So yeah, it's just kind of been the perfect storm for me, and I love doing it. Like as of right now, I'd love to keep making games my whole life for my career. So that's just kind of fun
that's also
on that.
That's one of the things that I love is you get to know that time period a bit more. Or when I did things like Dungeons and Dragons, I got more interested in like the medieval time period, or Age of Empires. I got really into like the Dark Ages and learning about that. So you kind of like you play, you have fun, you also learn about the time period a bit. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and we've had a lot of teachers reach out to us and get copies for their classrooms, which is really fun. Like especially with Salem, because a lot of teachers teach the Crucible, I think, during one of the years in high school, and so a lot of people have said that their kids really get more into the time and the feeling of the event with the game. So that's been fun.
So you're sort of kind of an outlier here in that with this very first campaign, Salem, you set a pretty reasonable $6,000 goal. I think that's pretty good for in terms of fulfillment, etc. But then you not only hit this goal really quickly, I think within your first day, maybe 2 days, you surpass it. And then it just goes up wildly. I'm looking at KitTrack here, and it goes up to over $100,000. What actually happened here? Like, did you expect this strong of a launch with your first campaign?
No, not at all. Like we were hoping we'd just, we'd hit our goal and just kind of, make some for our family and friends and just have it on our shelf, and it'll be a fun story and a fun experience. But yeah, it just blew up, and we're still not exactly sure how, why. I guess people just really responded to the artwork, and the game plays up to 12 people, which I think there was a need for that in the market that we didn't really realize. And then I think the biggest seller was our game comes in a book box, looks like a fake book. And I think the uniqueness of that really caught people's eyes. And that kind of just helped it explode. And also for our first one, Kickstarter, they tagged it as a staff pick pretty quick, which helped keep it at the top of the page, which also helped. But yeah, it definitely blew us away. We weren't expecting 100,000. So
this is something that you created with your wife. Am I correct with that?
Yeah. So we hired an illustrator as well named Sarah Keel. She did the illustrations, but then my wife does the graphic design. So like the layouts of the cards and the fonts and kind of putting it all together to make the feel of it. Then I handle the rules and the kind of the business side of it and the manufacturing and all that. So you two are basically sitting there and you're watching as more and more pledges come in or notifications on your phone. And I imagine that was just like a crazy time. Oh yeah.
It's not something you anticipate.
Yeah. It was crazy. Didn't get a lot of sleep that month for sure.
Yeah, I bet. But when you say, though, blow up, I think that's kind of a word we throw around. Where were actually these people coming from? If you look at, say, the top 3 or the top 4 sources of pledges, were these people coming from Kickstarter or news sites? Like, where were they coming from?
Yeah, it was mostly, the vast majority was within Kickstarter traffic itself. So it was like people just browsing the Kickstarter main page or the games page. I think we had a good image that people saw and they intrigued them, and they looked for it further and backed it. So we actually didn't do much in terms of marketing or ads or anything for Salem. A lot of it was internal Kickstarter traffic.
I did notice that you got on a bunch of different news sites, maybe unintended, like Geek Dad, Purple Pawn, looking at some of these initiative tabletop. So people were writing about you, I guess, organically?
Yeah, those were all organic. And those definitely helped. We definitely got some good backers from those as well. But yeah, those were people who just found our Kickstarter on their own and wrote about us. So
So it looks like the biggest takeaway here was not only work really hard to create the product. I'm not sure how long it took you. Maybe well, actually, that's a great question. How long did it take you to actually from concept to launching this?
Yeah, so for Salem, it was pretty much it was a side project for most of its life. It was probably like 2.5 years from start to finish for Salem, and then our second game was a year from start to finish. So we're getting quicker, but yeah, that's the timeline for that.
And then you launch the campaign. You do have amazing images in the campaign. I think it looks beautiful. It looks like something that's semi-professional. Something that you could actually buy on a store shelf or something like that. And you sort of gain all of this momentum, etc. Were there any other things that you learned from this first campaign looking back?
Yeah, so kind of like you alluded to, since we didn't do a lot of marketing and it still blew up, the biggest takeaway was, focus on your product as much as you can. If you make a product that's unique, and just really looks great and is interesting, then I think it'll have a way of promoting itself, and people will like it and they'll share it and they'll write about it. And so that's a big one. And then another one you talked about was how important the video and the photography was. So with our video in particular, I don't know if you watched that, the Kickstarter video for Salem, but we really tried to bring people into the world of the game. So I wrote out a script from the perspective of one of the characters in the game. Then I hired a voice actor, just like this really scary, epic voice, to read the script. And I think it just really got people excited. It showed the emotions that people would experience during the game. And I think it really helped people visualize okay, yeah, this game looks really fun. So we got a lot of feedback on that the video was important to people and the pictures. So in terms of the nitty gritties of the campaign, one thing that I didn't really realize was I didn't really know what stretch goals really were when we launched this. So we kind of came up with those as we went for Salem. So with our second one, we went in having some stretch goals in mind that kind of helps push the campaign even further, I think. So that's something we learned during our first project, was kind of the nature of Kickstarter, the stretch goals and the I don't know, just the lingo of Kickstarter and kind of what that community is like a little more. So yeah.
I was looking through also the comments that you have on this campaign. Some of them are really inspiring. I just wanted to read one. It says, just wanted to say, for my 10th graders who read The Crucible with me last year, loved the game. You played in 2 large groups with moderators on the last day of class before holiday. And it goes on to say how much they loved it, etc. So you're really impacting people with the project. And I think also the fulfillment aspect of the campaign is one of the hardest. Because you raise all this money, you do the marketing right, and then you actually have to ship out this thing. Was that smooth sailing? Were there any things that you learned on the fulfillment end?
Oh yeah, I mean, learned a ton being the first one, and it was some whole new animals to tackle, just with manufacturing in China and freighting it across the ocean, and then learning about shipping and all that. So, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work learning all that stuff, but it actually went pretty smoothly. Our manufacturer did a good job making the games, and we actually delivered on time, which was great.
If you could go back in time and talk to Travis right when he was beginning to start that fulfillment phase, would you tell him anything or give him any word of advice on that?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know, a few minor details, order this size of packaging, or order this many games instead of this many, or I don't know, use this fulfillment company instead of that one. Just little things, but for the most part, it worked out miraculously well.
I saw you also used BackerKit. Is that true for the fulfillment, coordinating stuff?
Yeah. So we used BackerKit for Salem, and then I've actually been using CrowdOx for Tortuga. BackerKit was fine. They do a good job, but there was just a few things about the interface that I didn't love that were a little confusing. And now their price is pretty high. So I've actually really liked CrowdOx, and I'd encourage people to at least give it a look.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check them out.
Yeah, the interface is really nice, and I've actually had a lot fewer backers message me like confused about things. It just seems like it's more intuitive, and it's like a smaller company than CrowdOx, but I kind of like that because I feel like they give me a little more one-on-one, and they're really quick to fix any issues I have or just help me do anything I want. So,
cool.
So I've liked them a lot.
Yeah, cool. We'll include a link to them. I do want to talk a little bit too about the second campaign, because this is really the granddaddy here. Like, this is the campaign with over 11,000 backers. This is the campaign that raised over $400,000 on Kickstarter. Phenomenally, you surpassed your goal on the first day, which was a $10,000 goal. You sort of stayed humble there. I think the first campaign you kind of can think of like, oh, like this was a fluke, like there's no way we can repeat the success, but then you did. So talk to me, what was it like going into the second one? Was there that level of anticipation? Did you do any kind of like pre-launch at all? Did you apply any kind of marketing before the launch? Would love to hear a bit about that. I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I was so nervous before launching because, like you said, I was like, what if Salem was just a fluke and this is gonna tank and I'm just gonna burn in flames? So yeah, pushing the launch button for Tortuga was just so scary. Like, I hope this does well. In terms of pre-launch marketing, again, we didn't do a lot. Like, we posted on our social channels like a couple months before, like saying, hey, this is coming, just kind of teasing what it was going to be. And then a couple weeks before, we messaged all of our Salem Kickstarter backers and said, like, hey, we're launching this. Here's some sneak peek images. But yeah, that's kind of it in terms of pre-launch marketing. Like, we let our fan base know that it was coming. And I got a lot of things prepared, like got emails drafted and got a lot of email lists ready to send out. But the one thing that was really key was right when I launched, I messaged our Salem Kickstarter backers again and said, like, hey, like, if you want the early bird pricing, we're telling you guys very first, so you guys can jump on this. And I think that really got it going, because right when I launched, I think our first backer came I think it was like 5 seconds later.
Wow.
Someone backed it, and from there it just snowballed on that first day and never really stopped. And yeah, that was a great feeling that first day, just because right then I was like, what, this is something that we can keep doing. This is something that we can sustain, that we have this audience that's going to come back if we keep doing great games and do high quality stuff, that this can be something that we keep doing. So that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. It also it sort of changes the trajectory of your career in that there's this whole new future now that you can pursue. You can open up new games, or you can build an e-commerce store. So it's like a validation of that. I did want to ask you, so when you say that you messaged your previous backers, what does that mean? Does that mean on Kickstarter you did like some kind of in your comments? Does that mean you did an email blast? How did you message them?
Yeah, so I just sent out an update within the Salem Kickstarter page. So when I send that out, it emails everyone who backed Kickstarter or backed Salem on Kickstarter. So it's really easy.
Cool. So basically, everyone saw in their email inbox that this new update happened and that you're launching a new campaign, and that's sort of how they found out about the new one.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's really powerful to me, and I don't want to downplay any of your social media numbers, but you have, I mean, just saying here plainly, under 2,000 followers on Twitter, like under 1,000 on Instagram. Like you don't have necessarily thousands and thousands of followers on these social channels. But as a beginning game maker, you might think, oh, I'm not going to get funded because I don't have thousands of social media followers. But you raised 400 grand without having that social media clout.
Yeah. I mean, in both of our projects, looking at the numbers and looking at the backers, the vast majority of people aren't people I know or people who follow us. They're strangers who have found us one way or another and like what they see and back it. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you hit that launch button. A bunch of people who backed your previous campaign sort of pile in. And then you sort of, I guess I call it the Kickstarter slump period, where like in the middle, where do you go from there? So take me through the process of once that happened, once you did that big announcement, were you doing anything else in terms of pushing your marketing out, or was this kind of all also an organic campaign?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that kind of gave it a boost was we did some ads on a site called Board Game Geek. They're probably the most important site in the board game world. There's just a lot of people on there, a lot of forums and things like that. So we ran some ads on there. We also ran a contest where if people visited our page and they answered some questions, then they could be entered to win some free games. So that also got the game trending on that site and got some new eyes on it. So that was a nice boost in the middle. Another really fun boost that happened with Tortuga. So I did an Ask Me Anything post on an AMA on Reddit. I think it was just in the entrepreneur Reddit I think it was just the general the AMA subreddit basically. So I think the title was like, hey, I'm a 29-year-old guy who's raised X amount on Kickstarter with board games. Ask me anything. And I think that just kind of intrigued people. Like, what? Like, this guy's raised how much? Making board games? And so that's hit the front page of Reddit, and it had, I think, like 2,500 comments, and it was upvoted thousands of times. And because of that, I think that day we had 60,000 hits to our Kickstarter page. So that got a lot of new eyes on it.
Wow.
And that kind of propelled us to the finish. So that was huge. It was a lot of work for probably 48 hours straight. I was just typing, answering questions, and staying really involved on that subreddit. And I think people noticed that, and that kind of kept that thread active and high on the page.
I was. Oh, okay. Sorry. You can keep going.
Oh yeah. So on that subreddit, I was just an open book and tried to answer people's questions about the business side of things and manufacturing and shipping and making games and what it's like quitting my job and working from home, and just try to be really open and helpful to people. And I think they really responded to that.
In terms of those questions that you were getting, what was maybe one or two answers you could share with the audience? Because I know I definitely have not covered all of the questions for this interview. I'm always biased too. Like, I get really excited about marketing. So I would love to hear if there's a top question or two, an answer you wanted to share, either it's working from home or your experience, quitting your job. Geez, that's incredible. That's really hard to do. It's like leaping off a cliff and, kind of assembling your plane on the way down. So I would love to hear your experience with that.
Yeah. Trying to think. I mean, a lot of people asked about, I don't know. Yeah, just about quitting the job, and kind of for that one, our experience was a little different because, when Salem launched, I was still working, but then I quit right after that finished, and so it was nice because we did have that $100,000 cushion I mean, a lot of that went straight to making the product and shipping that out, but it was nice having that little bit to jump off of. Trying to think what else. A lot of people ask about like what it was like working with my wife, and it's super fun because right now we're both at home, and it's just really fun to collaborate with each other. There's definitely times we need to like kind of walk away from work for a little bit and not allowed to even talk about it, just so we don't go crazy with it. But it's really fun, just kind of developing a creative vision for projects together, and then working on that. And then it's just great having a tangible thing that we can show people, like, this is something we did together that is like a big part of our life that's been fun to do. So yeah, I love it.
You have a bunch of people too around the world who are sort of part of that same journey. That's what's really cool to me. And also the fact that you're being very transparent, even now, and sharing what it took to do that, the things you've learned, et cetera. I think people just notice that, and they naturally want to learn more about you, as it seemed to be with the AMA.
Totally, yeah. And from that AMA, I had probably 50 people message me that said like, "Hey, I'm just like you. I'm making a game with my wife at home or with my friends. Help me take the next step." So I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do this, and working on projects and games, and just getting ready to take the next step. So that was fun talking to them.
So I do have one or two more strategic questions, but before we get into that, I just want to ask you, did you always envision yourself as a quote unquote entrepreneur? Like, was that something that you were trying to do, start your own business? Or are you more of the creative type who are using business to sort of as a vehicle to get your art out there and to get your game out there?
Right. I've always loved the entrepreneurial world. I think when I was in middle school, I would buy Snickers bars in bulk and then sell them at double the price at school. Just like, so kind of looking back, like, okay, like I always had this bug. Going through college, there's other career routes that I thought I would be taking at various points, but none of them ever really stuck. And even my first job out of college, it was good. I did digital marketing, which was fun. But still, I like didn't love like having to go into work every day and make money for someone else. That's kind of how I saw it. As like, all right, well, I'm making my boss rich and they're paying me okay, but I don't know.
And he also owns your intellectual property, anything you make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so nothing. The other paths that I thought about or that I started taking never really quite jived with me. But yeah, then. Once Salem took off, it just felt like such a no-brainer. Like, all right, this is the opportunity to make the jump, and my goal is to never have a boss again. So yeah, it's been great.
That's pretty cool. That Kickstarter like launched that entire new segment of your life in a certain way. Like it totally opened up all this new opportunity. And it wasn't even something necessarily you anticipated. It was just kind of putting your work out there for other people to check out. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I just have one or two other strategic questions before we wrap this up. So I noticed that you got about maybe 10% of your backers from new backers. So we talked about like Reddit. We talked about some of the other things you were doing. Did you also see people flow in from the Kickstarter marketplace to sort of make that number up?
Yeah, so like people browsing Kickstarter type of thing. Yeah, I think so. I think that was a lot of them.
Very cool. The last question that I have for you here, with your second campaign, were there any other things, having gone through the reward fulfillment process and sort of the customer service process, any other takeaways that you had with the second one? I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, The hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
Let's see. So with Salem, we did. So for our international orders, we sent all of those to a company in Hong Kong that sent them out. They're called Flowship. They did pretty well. But then most of the U.S. orders, we actually sent them to ourselves and then boxed them up ourselves and then took them to a bulk mail company that got us some really good rates. And that was good. But with Tortuga, just the scale of, 11,000, close to 12,000 backers, we wanted a place that would kind of be more, they handle all of it so that we can focus more on our next game and just try to make it a little more automated. So we're using a company called Ship Naked. People might have heard of them to do our fulfillment for Tortuga. They've been good to work with. So that's one change in terms of logistics. Just kind of outsourcing more of that so that we can focus more on our third game, which we're working on right now. We actually had a really fun play test of our third game last night that I'm still just really excited about.
Could you tell us a bit about what it is or what people can expect?
Yeah. So I haven't revealed the theme yet on that, but it's another game. So Tortuga 1667, it's part of our Dark City series of games that each of them is going to focus on a city in a year from history and kind of build on that. And we're actually relaunching Salem as part of that series and rebranding it as Salem 1692. So this game will be the third in that series. It's going to play 2 to 9 players. It's got some deception elements, kind of like our first two games.
Yeah.
And it's got a really nice backstab element going on right now that we love. So
that sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a few months we'll start teasing the theme of that and telling people more about that on our social channels and such. So
nice.
Yeah.
It seems like you're sort of transitioning now into more of an e-commerce company. You've set up. I checked out your website. It looks beautiful. I'd actually be curious what you use to create it because I know there's a bunch of different online stores out there. Not sure if you use one of those. Yeah.
So it's just a WordPress site. We used a theme, I think it's called Virtue theme it was like $50, I think, to use the theme. And that kind of has WooCommerce set up in it. So that's what we use for that. But yeah, I designed within the theme, I did the design on the website.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have a different strategy when you're now transitioning, say, the product Salem into more of for this just e-commerce store? Are people finding out about it via social media, or are you doing ads or anything like that?
Yeah, that's something we want to do more of. Salem it's kind of constantly sold ever since the Kickstarter ended. I think most of it's word of mouth. Luckily, Salem is a big player game. It's 4 to 12 players, and so a lot of it is people play with their friends. They bring over new friends to play, and then those friends like the game and they buy it, and then they play with new friends. It's just games are kind of nice like that. They're just kind of naturally viral things since you play with new people and they get interested. So we also sell a lot on Amazon. I think that's where a lot of people just naturally go. They like the game, so they go look on Amazon for it. So we get a lot of sales through there. But yeah, as I transition, as I hand off more of the logistical stuff, as we're figuring out exactly who we use for manufacturing every time and some good shipping processes and stuff like that, I'll be focusing more on game development and design, but then also the marketing. So I'll probably be doing some ads soon to reach some new audiences. Because like I said, my job before this was a digital marketer. So
yeah.
So I like that world of reaching people on the internet. So
very cool, very cool. Well, congratulations on all of your amazing success. You definitely delivered on 2 beautiful games. Really looking forward to learning a bit more about this next one. Where can people go to check out not only those products, but also be notified when your new one comes out?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for Facade Games. It's FACADE Games. We're also on Twitter. And then if you go to our website, facadegames.com, there's a place that you can enter your email to get updates. And then also on there, if you go to the blog section on our website, we have the link that we kind of alluded to where we summarize a lot of our Kickstarter takeaways that people can read about there. So
yeah, this is a really good blog post. Title: Our Advice to Fellow Kickstarter Creators. I'll be sure to include that as a link in the show notes so you guys can check it out. As it goes through a lot of different core things that you should really know before you launch your first campaign, and just some things that are going to help you raise more money. So I do recommend you guys check that out. Travis, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm going to give you the last word here. If you were to speak to yourself, Travis, right before he launches his very first campaign, he doesn't know what the future is going to look like. But looking back, what would you say to him? It could be a word of encouragement. It could be a final tip or something that you want to share. Anything like that, would love it if you could share it last here.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd just say like, hey man, like this is going to work out. You're going to make board games for a living. I think that would just make that first Travis a lot less nervous and just really excited about life.
Also, there's not much of a downside. Like, you put yourself out there, you see what happens, kind of deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, cool, man. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Gotta have you back and look forward to your next launch.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been good talking to you.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Brigman. I hope you got something out of my conversation with Travis and all the things that he shared about his Kickstarter journey. It's so cool to me that Kickstarter can actually launch a career. You know, it can change the trajectory of your career, and it can really just open up opportunities. You know, not only is it validation of a new business idea, not only is it validation that, yes, you, this person who has never created a gadget or a gizmo or a board game, can put out a product into the world, can acquire customers, can ship that out, and have a bunch of people raving about this product that you made. Just because you didn't do something in the past doesn't mean that you can't do it in the future. Now, if you do want my proven launch strategy, these are really incredible. I mean, these are nuggets of gold. It took me a lot of time to figure out some of the things that I have shared on this course, and I want to bring them not only to you, but also to people out there who can't afford to hire $1,000 marketing company to get the word out there about their campaign. Because quite frankly, not everyone has that large of a budget. So I put together this free email course that basically, once you enter your email, I'm going to send you several training videos in succession, and they're going to get you up to speed on the best marketing practices for not only getting Kickstarter campaign backers and getting the word out there, but also boosting your funding meter, making sure that you make the most of what you have to work with, whether that's your budget, whether that's just your small social media following. As we learned from this campaign, you don't necessarily need thousands and thousands of social media followers in order to become a Kickstarter success. However, you do need the right strategy. So if you want that strategy, go and check it out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. Enter your email address there and we'll get started right away. I hope you enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for our next podcast episode.